Hello and welcome to Art Time with Anderson. We are going to talk today about how to make this beautiful mountain landscape, and here are a couple of examples actually. So here we go right here, okay, and here we go right here. So you can see that in this, a little bit that way. In this we have these three mountain ranges, and as we learned from our Bob Ross video, the front mountain range is the darkest, the middle one is the lightest, the middle one is a middle value, and the last one is the lightest. And that's because of our oh so wonderful phenomenon of atmospheric perspective. So we're going to talk about how we actually get this. We've been practicing creating mountain ranges and drawing mountain ranges, so we're actually not going to worry about that right now. All we're worried about right now is creating the values that we see right here. So what I'm going to do to be able to get that is these are actually cut out of different pieces of paper. So to create yours, you're going to use 3 pieces of paper. What you're going to need is total 4 pieces of paper, watercolor in the palette, water, brushes, and paper towel. You've already done the mountains, so don't worry about that right now. You've already done your pre-sketch of the mountains. To make these mountains, we want to know that we're going to do 1 light value, 1 middle value, and 1 dark value. It actually doesn't really matter which order you go in. It just really matters that you end up with your light value, your middle value, and your dark value. And then we're going to do your sky, which we're going to talk about last. So let's take a look at this first. We'll come back to the instructions. Sometimes better to do. Here's my palette with all my colors. I've got my paper towel for keeping my brushes wet or dry as I need to, and of course brush. For this you're going to want a couple of different brushes. These are to add details in different colors, but your big brush is the one you're really going to want to lay that paint out on to the page. So I'm going to start with the first one. I want to be my light value. I'm just going to really use a lot of water. I'm painting it with invisible. So just using that water, and then knowing that once I have done that, then I'm going to get this really, really light purpley color. Now, I want to really be able to use the fact that the watercolor spreads out and makes these color variations so nicely. So I'm going to use a little bit of blue here. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of a blue turquoise. And I'm going to spread these together right now. And that's getting nice and smoky, so I like that. And that's partly because I'm using that blue turquoise. And then I can just come in here and I can just kind of add, I could pick this up and drip it. This one's the tricky one because I do actually want this one to kind of be that smoky background, Purple Mountain Majesty, just like the song color. So I think I'm going to leave this one for a little while, just sort of trusting that it's going to dry nice how I like it. So I'll move that over to the side. Now I'm going to come into my middle value, and for my middle value, I don't mind that there's a little bit of color on my paper so far. Still using my big brush and actually just dabbing that off a little bit, getting just a little bit drier. For this one, I think I'm going to do a little bit more of a turquoisey. So that's the turquoise color. We're using the liquid watercolor for these. And then I'm going to add in that blue, but I kind of want to get a little bit more like color variation going on here. So I don't know if maybe this one needs like a little bit of purple. There we go. Just a little bit. But comparing it here to my first one, seeing, I used a lot of water on this one. I could actually pick this up and let it kind of do a little bit of this action like that. Okay. And I'm kind of liking what this is doing too, but I'm going to leave this one for a little bit, and I'm going to come back to it because I want to darken it up, but I want to let it dry. Okay, so now this is going to be my darkest one, and again, I don't mind so much that there's a little bit of color on it already. Okay, so just adding that water in. And this one is the one that is going to be my foreground. I'm just going to go ahead and dip that color in. In a lot of ways, it's like the easiest one to do because I just kind of like know that it's going to have all this nice saturated color. If I really want to give it more of that foreground type look, I could pull in some greens or mix the green with the turquoise, which is really going to give it that like it's like maybe like a rolling mountain. I can pick it up, I can move it around, I can blend it, I can let it be more flowy. All we really are concerned with right now is that this one's our lightest, this one's our middle, and this one's our darkest. And as you guys can see probably that this one's looking nice and dark, okay? But this middle one right now is not that dark. But I let it dry for a few minutes. I mean, I do like some of the color variations on it, so I let it dry for a few minutes, and then I'm actually, it's off camera a bit, but I'm actually sort of pre-mixing some of my blues and my purples over here, and then bringing in some of the greens, and then maybe just adding some water. I could come in with this brush, okay? And then, you know, again, thinking to myself, what's my value shift? Is this one my middle? Is this one my darkest? Is this one my lightest? This one's definitely still my lightest. Although at this point we could probably give it just a little bit more blue purple. And now I can use some of these Bob Ross techniques and maybe blend a little bit with a wet or a dry brush, experimenting. This is a good time to experiment. I've gone ahead and mixed the blue and the purple right on my brush. Very actually similar to the way Bob Ross does it. Okay, I'm actually just going to add a little more water to this guy and then come in over here. Although I do like some of the things that are happening over here. The issue that I'm having with this one is that I just want a little bit more saturation on the paint, meaning I just want it a little bit darker there so that I feel like that is my very front mountain range. There we go. And because I am doing these all at once and letting this one just dry a little bit, that is how I am able to come back in and sort of get some of these cool color variations. Okay. And I know that this one is going to be my front mountain, so I'm just adding some little water droplets to kind of see how it ends up working. I'm going to just try to like trail my brush a little bit, just see what I see. And later on, I will decide where each mountain is going to go. I like to have the colors a little bit more mixed, personally. But you can smooth them out. Or you could do kind of more like this one, where I use one color in the middle and a different color on the side. Now, right now, I'm not as concerned with the colors as I really am the values. So I have my light value, my middle value, and my dark value. Later on, these are going to dry. They're going to dry way more even. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut them up, and I'm going to have my mountain ranges. And the trick is I actually made these two mountain ranges from the same pieces of paper. It's just flipped upside down. So if I were to match these up, these mountain ranges would come together and make one image. So you're actually going to get a chance to make two. This background is done with spray paint. This one with watercolor. So I'm going to have a little bit of trouble moving these because they're wet, but that's okay. So I will move these over and we can talk about your background, which because we're doing blue mountains and purple mountains, yellows and oranges are across the color wheel from blues and purples. So they're going to make a nice, beautiful, contrasty sunset. So I got a little bit of blue still on my brush here, but that's okay. And I love this like pink color right here. But the trick to the sunset is actually kind of like Bob Ross's banks. We do very little paint on it. So I'm just gonna leave that. I love it. It looks like very Aurora Borealis to me, and I'm gonna let it dry, and then I'm gonna have this sort of like crazy sunset moment later. Okay, that is going to look a little bit like this one. Okay. And if you do need a smaller piece of paper to practice some of these color combinations,